Welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally. If you missed our last episode, we shared how we're doing going into this new school year. Please go back and check it out. And while you're there, leave us a review. We value you and these conversations. Our guest today is a real treat. She has over 20 plus years experience as a HROD leader in both large and small organizations. She is a certified life coach for leaders and a talent development expert who guides leaders and teams in understanding themselves. Grab a seat, one of our comfy bleachers. Please welcome on the Teacher's Pep Rally, Angie Robinson.
Hello. Thank you.
Yay,
We're
we're
in the house.
excited. I know this has been you've been a guest on my wish list, to be honest. So come out in this season. You as our first guest. It's just a delight. And may I mention, you are going to be a guest while we're doing a first this season. Letitia, do you want to tell us what we're going to start doing?
Yes. I mean, we could not have planned it better, but I am so excited that we are launching our Happy Happenings here on the Teacher's Pep Rally. Just really want to be intentional about, as we navigate throughout the week, some positive things that happen. We want to be self-aware, and we will learn more about that in this episode, but just wanting to encourage each other and our listeners as you go throughout the week. Let's acknowledge and celebrate the positive and happy things that happen to us throughout the week. And I think we need it now more than ever. So every week, guys, we will be sharing our happy happening for the week. Does that sound like a plan?
Awesome. I love it.
Okay, well, I am going to kick us off. And this, I think, is going to set the bar. My happy happening for this week is jury duty.
Ooh. Oh, that's fantastic.
I knew it. I had some things to pick from, but I picked jury duty because, if you can find a happy happening in that, right? But to be honest, guys, going through that process and spending all of Monday there really got me to thinking about, even with all of the things that we know are wrong with our judicial system, it still is one of the greatest in the world. And as a woman of color, I felt like it's, serving on a jury gives me the opportunity to add my voice in that system and try to make, even if it's a small difference. So my happy happening this week is really experiencing that, being in the courtroom, going through jury selection, and just really learning a little more about how it happened. I'm getting $30, and I was actually a little sad that I didn't get picked.
Oh, spoiler.
I had this like aha moment, right, at the courthouse, and then didn't even get picked. But that's okay, guys. So, jury duty and my little aha moment is my happy happening for the week. So, Pete, do you want to give us your happy happening?
Yeah. So to our new listeners, I'm a music teacher at an elementary school. And I guess a year or two ago, I started introducing modern band method, guitars and drums and keyboards. I was really trying to get away from recorder. That might be the only good thing out of COVID, that we don't have to do recorder anymore. And xylophones. And I'm trying to make it more real for them, more relevant for them, and cooler for them, and a little bit more fun for me. Anyway, the drum set in our room has really taken a beating during the summer when I wasn't there. And the first couple of weeks back to school, some of our fifth graders, maybe we got to work on the respect for the instruments, but got a little beaten up. And so I said, that's it. Drum set's off. We lost that for a while. We got to get respect back to that. Hi-hat's broken. It's falling apart. I'm not taking care of it. It's on you guys. And I just thought it's just going to stay there for a while, get a few months. There's testing going on. I have testing all around the music room, so I have to keep them quiet while teaching music. It's not very fun. And every morning and afternoon, I have car duty. I'm out there at 7:15 this morning and waiting for my PSL to kick in. And a dear sweet boy comes up and tugs on my jacket on my back and goes, "I have a surprise for you. Can I go to your room?" He's a good boy. I said, okay. And he said, "I promise it's only going to be a couple of seconds. I just have to do one thing." I trust. I said, okay, go ahead. So he went down there, didn't think anything of it. done, go back to finish duty, go back to the classroom to start the day, get everything rolling. And he put a bow on the hi-hat. He went online and learned how to fix and assemble the hi-hat cymbal. He did it all himself, fourth grader. He never did anything before. And so I, me, I was, so I went and gave him a biggest hug, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So that it was today. I was like, oh, I don't have anything yet. I've been looking. And when that happened, I said, oh, this is wonderful. And it was just so great. So I've been telling every class that this boy went and did that. That's his hi-hat cymbal now. You guys better take care of it. And he's walking a few inches taller today because I made such a big deal about it.
Awesome. That is
cool.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So good.
Yeah. Good deal. Thank you for searching all week. Aaron, what you got to add?
Oh my gosh. This just, everyone keeps just topping the next one off. Okay. So I've got
don't worry.
All right. So everyone, let's see. I've got a couple and I'm trying to, it's really easy for, I'm going to be like Lou Mangello. If you know Lou Mangello, I'm going to say two, but it's one answer. Right.
Okay.
So this podcast every week, I kid you not, I'm so excited we're back and we're having these conversations and that Angie's here. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of us reaching out. We talk to people who would like to be potential guests, or that we are reaching out to them because we love to have their voice, their perspective. And we're really trying to reach out. Letitia and I were talking about really trying to get some voices we haven't heard yet. And I have to tell you, I've had some amazing conversations this week with different groups and different people to come on this season. And it just gets me excited because every time I talk to people, and they're all over the place, that they don't live here where I live. There's a lot like us out there. There are people that get excited about what we're doing. They love talking about education. They continue to want to make things better. So for me, that's my happy happening this week, because I just feel like I've had the pleasure of talking to not only all of you this evening, but all these other people that I think are going to be coming on to the pep rally and talking. And it fills my heart to know that there's so many educators out there that truly love what they're doing. They admit it's not perfect, but they want to continue to have conversations to talk about what we can keep doing to make it better. So there we go.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's
fun. It's a bad little mini battery charges, right, Aaron? That's cool.
Yeah.
Totally.
I love that.
It's cool. That is cool.
Angie, add to our happy happenings.
Oh, I don't have one that's quite as deep, you guys, but I didn't have as long to prepare. That is what I'm going to my defense. So tonight is definitely one of those. Being a guest, I listen to your podcast and I love it. And so I'm super excited about that. But also, as a parent of a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, it's crazy schedules. We're running all over the place. And my happy is that because I have my own business, I get to be there for all of it and all the crazy. And I love it. And when I get to see what they love to do, it's even better. So my son, he lives and breathes football. He loves it more than life itself. And his first game was this past Sunday. He was in pads about 3 hours before he even needed to be there. He was so excited. And so I got to watch him, and watch him in his game. They won. It was amazing. And then he got to go to the Vikings game, which he lives and breathes purple and gold for sure. And so as a parent, seeing their joy, just makes you so happy. So that's my happy for the week.
That's
cool.
Thank you for sharing. That was awesome. Fred, close us out.
So you know what? I had one set. I was kind of like Pete looking all week, but I actually had one, and I was going to say I was going to do something else, but then something happened today. And a lot of you have heard me tell the story of how when I teach an idea, you really never know which direction they're going to take it, and they could take it and they can run with it. Well, we're back live in the classroom, in the college classrooms. And probably this week I started to notice a different vibe. Like I've noticed now it's I could read them. I could read them again, and that in itself it's a great thing, right? You can see when they're getting it, not getting it, bored, whatever. On Zoom, not so much. It was a lot harder, right? But especially for the student who would screenshot themselves just staring at you, and you weren't sure if it was them or a screenshot. So,
awesome.
But today was one of those things. I had an assignment coming due tonight at 9:00, and this is a freshman class. And the lab was not that difficult, but it had them go out and do something that they've never done before. And according to these students, they never done before. And today we're beginning class and student is like already stopping me. Mr. Fred, I have a question. Could you come and take a look at this? And it was one of those moments where like, I really want to get the class started. And as I'm going over to his desk to see what he was talking about, it was one of those moments where he took the idea that we were going and he did. He went off in a way and he was questioning whether or not it was okay. And I immediately said, yes, this is exactly what I was hoping somebody would do with this. And he kind of looked at me surprised. And I said, we have not had that kind of interaction for 2 years. Wow. That immediacy of everything happening, the instantaneous feedback, the reactions, the emotions. Yeah. And it was a neat, joyful moment. It was like, this feels good. This is why we teach, and this is why we're back, and so on. So that was and that happened just today. So Pete, like you, I was kind of like, I don't know, does this qualify? Does this qualify? But that was the story for today. It was a good moment for us.
Yes, it qualifies. Yeah. Thank you guys for being such good sports. And, we want to encourage our listeners to try this at home, maybe start doing happy happenings at home to debrief with your kiddos. Hit us up on Facebook at the Teachers Pep Rally and let us know what your happy happening is. And, at the end of the day, not only is this good for our mental and emotional well-being, but it actually extends our life and helps with a lot of other things like stress and heart disease. So, we're not just doing it just because we really care about each other and our listeners. So thank you again, guys, for being great sports. Erin, take it away.
All right. So I think that's nicely segueing into Angie stuff, right? We're going to be talking about self-awareness. And so what it made me think about self-care, because that's kind of been a buzzword. Some people, it frustrates them. Others, they're cool with it. So can you kind of help us think about what it means to be self-aware? Like, how is that different from self-care?
Yeah, sure. So, right, self-care is really about maintaining a healthy relationship with yourself, your mind, your body, right? The mental health, physical health. Self-awareness to me is what self-care starts with. So self-care starts with self-awareness, right? Self-awareness helps us figure out really what is needed and why we need it. If part of that is taking care of our mind, we've got to know what's going on in our mind. We have to be aware enough of what's going on there to know what we really need, right? So it allows us to tackle or to embark on a self-care journey for more than just the self-care sake. It's not just, the manicures and the massages. It's really understanding if I'm aware of what really, frustrates me or takes away my energy, if I'm really honing in on that, and I know what I really need from a self-care standpoint, that's actually going to make a sustainable difference.
Yeah. And I think some people, when they hear self-awareness, they're like, oh, I'm totally self-aware. And I'm not sure if we all, I'm not sure if we are. I think it's something that has to be in practice all the time. You have a really great website, and there's 3 different types of self-awareness that you put on. And I think that helps people get a good perspective of what it truly means to be self-aware. Can you tell us those 3 types?
Sure. I think I'll start with just explaining or defining self-awareness from my definition. And what it means to me is really knowing and understanding yourself by bringing to the conscious what's in the subconscious. So I always call it the monkey brain, our back brain, right? There's all this stuff going on there that's driven by emotion. When we can bring that up to our prefrontal cortex, our conscious brain, that is when we really truly have self-awareness. And that allows us to really be intentional of leveraging who we are, creating change, connection, those types of things. And so in that knowing and understanding yourself, I think, this is me making this up sort of, but there's like 3 elements that, 3 kind of buckets that when you put them together makes you who you are. And so the 3 buckets, the 3 areas are your inherent strengths, weaknesses, and passions, your psychological preferences, which I can talk through, and then the 3rd thing is your experiences, your thoughts, and beliefs. Do you want me to explain each of those a little bit deeper? Okay.
Yes, please.
So yes. So your inherent strengths, weaknesses, and passions. So you've heard these things before, right? But I truly believe that we are born with things that we innately are better at and things that maybe we're not as good at that we can work toward. And then passions, which they all develop over time and as we age, but I really think there's some innateness there. So we're kind of born with some things. That's one thing. Then there's what is called the psychological preferences. And this essentially is what determines your personality type. And so I'm sure you've all taken the tests. I don't call them tests, the assessments before. Tests make it sound like there's a right and a wrong, and there's not, but the assessments, right? Those personality, Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, there's Strengths Finders. My favorite is Insights Discovery. The psychological preferences are all really built on this technology, these assessments on the preferences. And so there's really three things, and this was developed by a Swiss psychologist, not to get too deep, but Dr. Carl Jung, some of you may have heard of him. His work is really where this technology came from. And he looked at three different preferences: how we're oriented to our environment, or how we recharge, how we make decisions, and how we interpret information. And so those three things in combination kind of make who we are. So things like, how we recharge, you've heard these terms. Either we have a preference for introversion or extroversion, right? We've all heard of that before. Mm-hmm. And so really, that comes with some connotation. Introverts, we hear things that's, some people even say it's a weakness, right? Or they're just people that are quiet or shy. That's really not what it is. It just means that those with a preference for introversion tend to, need time to absorb and to process, and prefer to think before speaking. Or extroversion is the opposite of that, right? Kind of off the cuff. They speak to think. They like to engage with people and get out there first. So there's a preference for that. There's not an either or, there's one that we're stronger in. Then there's how we make decisions. So either thinking from the head, logic, facts, and there's feeling more from values, based on values, or how is this decision going to impact people? And then the third thing is how we interpret information. So how we make sense of the world. It's either sensation, so I might see something and truly see things from the five senses, or intuition, where I'm making connections and thinking futuristic, those types of things. So these are all psychological preferences that we tend to lean one way or the other, have a stronger preference for, but we all have all of it within us. We can dial it up, we can dial it down. So that's a lot. I know I just said a lot there, but but it really is important or helpful to know kind of where you are and where you land in those things, so you can understand your why a little bit better. Why you do the things that you do, why you communicate the way that you do, and you can understand how others' preferences might interact with you, so you can adapt and connect better with others. Okay.
So my wheels are turning, right? As the therapist in the group, my wheels are turning because, to your point earlier, Erin, a lot of us think that we've got this down pat, right? Self-awareness. I know that my favorite color is. And it's so much deeper, right? Angie just really laid out some really great foundation. I'm a firm believer that really the core and the crux of mental disharmony, if you will, is because we struggle with this lack of self-awareness, right? And it's a lifelong process. I just think that for us to, I'm very transparent. I am still in therapy. My therapist said something to me a few sessions ago, and I really got offended. Like, what? And then I started to really think about it. And it's like that another level of self-awareness is kind of like another piece of me was revealed. And so, I don't want us to get afraid of, this journey, because it's exactly that. It is a journey. And to kind of tie it back to our space and education, particularly at the younger age, if we can really teach kids this early on, it will just, I just can't even tell you how it would shift everything. I speak to 40-year-olds that have no clue what happiness is, what feelings are. They can't even identify feelings. And so, I love that you laid that foundation. And I really want, I encourage our listeners to keep listening to it over and over again, this episode, because I just think it's just invaluable already.
Yeah. And there's the third kind of component of this that I find to be the most fascinating. And I think it's because I've really taken a deep dive into it myself over the last few years. And that is our experiences and our beliefs and our thoughts, right? So we all have these different experiences in life. And every time, everything we experience starts to form beliefs that we have. based on our experience, right? And so that is continually changing. And then we have thoughts about all of that as well, right? And so our thoughts truly do create our feelings that determine what actions we're going to take or not take and determine our results. And the thought work, which some people are like, oh, that's too woo-woo. It's the most powerful thing, I think, right, that there is. And so I love what you say, right? If we can teach our kids early on just what self-awareness even is, knowing that it's going to continually evolve and change. And we all have blind spots. There's so many things we can't see. So working with a therapist or a coach or somebody, it's amazing because they can help us see our brains in a way that we cannot see them ourselves because we're in them.
Yeah, and it's really helpful. I think what Letitia just said about teaching it early on. So just today I launched our team project in our class, and these are once again the freshman groups. And I could see that anxiety already starting to build in because they're coming together. Most of them are introverted because of this field seems to attract that type of personality type. But they're already coming. It almost feels like they have no awareness of these differences in personality types. And then I'm afraid to say that they're also ill-equipped to understand, okay, so even if you do recognize your personality trait or type, what do you do next? Like, how do you listen better? Or how do you kind of, you said it before, Angie, not improve it, but to build on it and recognize it and make it stronger.
Be intentional.
Yeah, be intentional. And so, like, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, is I will have dysfunctional teams. They will get stressed out. And that stress could be so significant to a young person that they'll drop a class. They'll drop out of college. Like I'll see it go to that extreme from time to time. So I know I'm putting them into almost this crucible, and I try my best to kind of at least give them some basic tools, but really it would be wonderful if they were coming in more prepared to understand what collaboration means. And that's, but it always feels like they really do start from the bare minimum or the ground floor.
You know, Fred, and I think that's a great example that you've given us because, you know, kind of back to what Angie said about experiences, even something as almost foundational as how do you experience anxiety? How do you feel it in your body, right? Your body keeps the score. It doesn't lie. Right. And so even teaching them something as basic as, okay, you're in Abley's class and you're starting to feel anxiety. How are you experiencing it in your body? Oh, these are the tools I can do. I'm feeling warm. So let me go to the bathroom and put some cold water on my face or on my forearm. You know, just very simple tools and strategies, but even in how do you experience anxiety in your body?
Or that it's okay, right? That it's
right.
Yeah, that it's okay. Like it's normal. We all have feelings. I don't know about you guys, but I know growing up, right, they were the socialized things like, you know, big boys don't cry, or to cry is to be weak. And those are like, I know that as a belief that I carried with me through most of, I mean, I'm 50 and I probably through the last couple of years have finally realized like, oh, that does not make me a weak person because I cry actually, right? But these are some socialized things that we pick up even in childhood. So even teaching that feelings, and I know we do this in younger grades, but along the way, feelings are normal and they're okay. And there's a way to feel them and process them so we don't avoid, resist, you know, take on buffering behaviors like overeating or things like that, right? And I just think even that is super important.
You know, I'm sorry, Pete, go ahead. Thank you. I have a after school club, a theater arts club, and I have a student in there who he has a lot of blow-ups during the regular school day. And when I saw that he was signed up for this club, I was super excited because the kid is so bright and so talented, but he's so high strung, and he'll fixate on something and really melt down, and it could throw off the entire room for a long time, to the point where they have to remove him, I've seen. So when I saw him join in this club a few weeks ago, I sat down and had a talk with him. We have a pretty good rapport, and we agreed to have a signal if he felt things were getting too loud or too wild, or if he was uncomfortable with something, just to have that outlet first established, just to say, hey, I understand. I know sometimes some things bother you, but I really think you could add to the group and be amazing. Let's have this established between us. So today we had our theater club, and he's starting to go, and he comes up to me and he says, Mr. Bush, this is stressing me out. And I said, I gave him the biggest hug. I said, me too, me too. And so he just sat next to me, and, you know, we got scars. We have all sorts of stuff. He wrapped him and we wrapped ourselves in a scarf, and we watched the rest of the practice together. And it was just, I was so proud of him that he was able to say that. And I made that with the rest of the cast. I said, look, it's okay. If something's not feeling it, you're not right for you, speak up. I said, I wish at his age as a third grader, I could have verbalized that to anybody in my life. I didn't even know the word stress back then.
Right,
So
right.
it's so valuable at Fred's end and where I am. It's so important.
You know what? And
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Fred.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say though, or Angie, you say about I don't know what you referred to it as. It wasn't a norm, but the big boys don't cry. The crying means weakness. You know what? It also occurs in the disciplines. So as I'm saying to all of you that here I am in the tech sector teaching the technology stuff, I know that my counterparts in the human development family studies degree, this stuff is part of their curriculum. Like this is built in. But in the business degree and in the technology degrees, we don't factor the stuff in. And unfortunately, well, I'm glad we're out of COVID, but we were at that one period where we were weaving in. We didn't do a spring break the one year. We did wellness days. And and that was an intentional injection of a practice in the semester, in the classes, saying this is what wellness is. Now, one day a week or one day a semester doesn't really do much, but at least it was that awareness across all disciplines. But now we're back to reality. And guess what? All that's gone. Well, it won't be after tonight's talk, because that's what I'm going to be trying to seek some people to bring some of that back into the classroom. So,
Angie, I was just going to say is it sounds like too, there's a lot of physical signs. And so being self-aware, this is something over the last couple of years as an adult where I've started to recognize, oh, like my stomach hurts, right? Or I have a headache. Is the headache because a storm is coming, or did I just stress myself out about something? And so if it takes us a while to start recognizing physical signs, or, you know, that an emotional reaction and trying to dig down to what that could have stemmed from, like, you know, Pete's example, I mean, that's a physical reaction where the kid is literally kind of like, you know, in frustration, putting their hands up. I think sometimes as teachers, educators, parents, you know, sometimes we can recognize it in the children because we can see the physical manifestation of the anxiety, but it's how do we try to help guide them to try to figure out to recognize it first of all, and then second of all, like Letitia is saying, start teaching some best practices or modeling how to handle it.
It's a really good question. And I don't work with kids. I just want to say that, right? But I work with adults, so the kids that become adults. and I can see how some of this manifests too. And the people I work with, the clients I work with is really teaching them, again, just to be aware and get curious. Curiosity to me is one of the most fundamental human skills that we all could have. And it's curiosity starting with yourself. So it is when you see those signs, what our brain wants to do is be like, oh, I'm in trouble. I got to protect myself. So I'm going to shut her down and I'm going to just go do something else. Right. But it's a matter of just getting curious to be like, okay, my stomach is hurting. And I know it might be harder to teach a child to slow down, but it's asking yourself, where is that coming from? Like Letitia said, how, you know, what is that doing in my body? All of those kind of questions are so important. It's that pause. There is such beauty in pause, just taking a moment to pause and ask yourself a couple of questions so you can sort of start to dig in and get to the root a little bit. Because again, what our brains want to do is like, here's what I do, right? When I start to feel stressed, all of a sudden I find myself in the pantry and my face is in a box of Oreos or something, right? Because it's much easier for us to avoid the feeling. So we do other things, we buffer in really unhelpful behaviors. And so I think that's with children too. It's just that power in the pause and kind of asking yourself some questions, getting curious about what's actually happening.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is you're starting to kind of go into this list of what could we benefit from if we are self-aware. And so one of them's curiosity, it sounds like. What else could we benefit from by being self-aware?
Oh, there's so many things. So because I do think when we're self-aware, right, it does open up the space for us to be, and this is a buzzword too, but to be our best self. And I really believe that. So really honoring and leveraging who we are, managing if we need to make changes, like just being really intentional about that. And when we can do that, and really check our thoughts. I always go back to, what are you thinking about that? I do this with clients a lot. I'll do an assessment with them and we'll talk about their personality. And then they'll say something like, oh, but I really hate that I'm like that. And that's a thought, right? So we got to work on that. Like, you can't hate that about you. Let's talk about what's so great about it. You're right. So we kind of go down that path. But when we open up that space, what happens is we start to minimize this comparison thing, where we compare ourselves to others. We start to get onto ourselves when imposter syndrome, right? That fraud feeling comes about. We start to have more compassion for ourselves. That's another huge one. We can have self-compassion. It opens us up to being more compassionate with others. So that builds stronger relationships. I just get goosebumps because I just believe this. There's so many things. But we can really, again, if we're intentional about our thoughts, we can be really intentional about our decisions, which can lead us down the path to whatever it is, whatever our goals are, whatever we want to, do in the classroom or whatever it is. We can kind of get out of our own way when we're onto ourselves, when we're onto our own brains. We can get out of our own way, have our own backs, and really get the results that we're looking to get. In a nutshell.
As you were saying that, Angie, I was bouncing around this one word in my head, and I was kind of wondering what you think of how it's related. That's reflection. How does reflection factor into self-awareness? Is it actually just an exercise? Is it a byproduct? Is it what creates self-awareness? Or how do you see that fitting in?
I think all of the above, to be honest with you, because there can be some like reflection on, let's say I'm embarking on something. So I'm heading into my day and I have a full agenda, and I also have a meeting with administration or whatever it is. And I know, right, that it's going to be crazy. You can do some reflection ahead of time about, what am I thinking about that? How do I want to show up today? What do I want the end of the day to look like? That's kind of some forward thinking reflection. It can be, the day happened and now I need to download, get everything out of my brain to think about, how did it actually go? How did I show up? Did I show up the way I wanted to? What feelings did I have? What might have caused those feelings? How could I have done that better? What did I do well, and celebrate? So there's kind of that post reflection. I think it's all of it. I think it's a huge part of self-awareness.
Good. Thank you.
That is really great and super comprehensive, Angie, what you've just shared. And what was coming, keeps coming up with me is how each and every one of us tonight can really play such an important part in building the self-awareness in our spheres of influence, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, all of that, what we're talking about is really all of this higher level thinking. And what impacts that is trauma, right? Trauma impacts the way the brain develops. And so the reason why we have adults that are really in adults that are in, or kids that are in adult bodies, because the people you see, Angie, sometimes can be still kiddos, right? On the inside, but trauma impacts that. And it impacts how the frontal cortex actually develops, right? So all of us in our spaces have the power to really impact the kiddos, college, corporate level, because it's never ending. And obviously we are still in COVID. We're still kind of in limbo, and our kids have suffered great trauma, which has impacted their ability to do all of these things that we're talking about. And so, I just want to kind of tie it all together, that in all of our spaces, this is just critical work. And we have the power to really add that value so that people show up, their best selves.
Yeah.
Great list, Angie. Thank you.
I also think that to add to that, Letitia, just kind of what's been transpiring the last couple of years, but even before the pandemic, I mean, Fred and I would always talk and be like, oh, even before then, this profession is wonderful and beautiful, whether you are a district leader, all the way into the school level. But I know I've been looking at a lot of colleagues' faces, and there's this sense of them losing themselves. They're losing either the love for the profession or just the energy they used to have in their day-to-day lives, whether it's the busy schedules, they're trying to meet so many students' needs. So when we're talking about this stuff, everyone keep in mind, we know all this, but how, Angie, do we try to make sure that educators don't lose themselves, that they can use maybe this self-awareness to kind of either bring back the love for the profession or find some kind of other new passion in what they're doing in education. That's so important to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a huge, huge question. And I'm sure there's a lot more than what I can share, but here's what I think. I think that, and I do this with my clients too, is this inside out approach. And so it starts with the inside, it starts with you, it starts with really taking the time to understand you, the whole self-awareness thing, right? In order for us to really give our best and make the impact we want to on the outside. And there's a bajillion programs you can Google and find out all the ways to, have better mindfulness, or to schedule your time, or to start your day off right. There's so many things out there, which are all great. But if you don't start with your thoughts about it or what you're really thinking and feeling, that stuff doesn't really work. So I really believe you have to start on the inside. And so that takes work and it takes time. And oftentimes people are like, well, I don't have time for that. Especially, I'm going to make a really sweeping generalization, but people in education are very giving, right? You're doing things for others. And so it's really hard to say, yeah, I'm going to take the time to work on my inside. That is really hard, but I think it's really critical. So a couple of things I think about. I think, always remembering your why. Why are you doing what you're doing in the first place? And it's a constant reminder. I think it's something good to revisit on a frequent basis, even have it like posted somewhere on your planner or your phone lock screen or something. This is why I do what I do. It helps kind of ground. Okay, that's right. And it can help you on a day-to-day basis, really make sure that what you're doing aligns with your why. And if it's not, then something is off and you can kind of course correct. So remembering your why, I think your values and understanding what your own core values are is really important. And again, I think it's an exercise that you do. Maybe it's every year before school starts. You just get really clear on your own values. And again, you check for alignment throughout the days. Am I aligning with my values? What I'm doing, does it align? What I'm hearing, what the people I'm interacting with, right? All those things, does it align with the things that are most important to me? We already talked about this a lot, but you have to allow your feelings. And again, I think as anybody, but as teachers, and by the way, thank you all for everything that you do. I can't even express the appreciation I have for educators, but allow yourself to feel the feelings because you have them. We all have them, right? But if you're frustrated or if you're feeling, demotivated or whatever it is, let that be. Now, don't swim in it. Don't let it be there forever, but allow them. And there's a way to process feelings again, so you don't start to do things like overwork or overcommit or all the overs when we try to not feel our feelings. I already said this one too, but practice curiosity and compassion on yourself. It's so important. We have to be our biggest cheerleaders. We have to be our own advocates for our own mental well-being. So curiosity and compassion with yourself. Okay, now this is where I get into my coach talk, right? But learn how, and this is a process, but learn how to not take responsibility for other people's feelings and actions. Oh, yes. Right?
Working on that.
Yes, it's not easy. And as humans, especially the giving type, we want to do that. But every human, now, okay, adults different. Children are different because they're not developed yet in the brain, right? So that's a little bit of a different story. But we have to let adults and other humans be responsible for themselves. We can't be responsible for them. We can influence, we can try to create impact, but everybody gets to own their own thoughts and behaviors.
Love it.
Yeah. And then I don't know about you, I am a recovering people pleaser. And I think that there might be some people pleasers in the crowd, right?
Welcome to the club.
Yes.
We
And
will
it's
send
something
your
to
gift next week.
I hate it.
perfect. I cannot wait. Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Next week.
Another episode.
But it's so interesting. I started doing this little experiment with myself on people pleasing. And I would catch myself when I am doing something for others and I would write it down and then be like, really get deep into why am I doing that? Am I truly doing it for the better of somebody, or is there something else? Is it because I want someone to like me? Is it like what? There's usually some fear underneath people pleasing. So it's just something to explore and to watch a little bit, right?
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Angie, and this is for all of our teachers, because I also coach generally educators. And if we stuck to our why, we're clear on the why, clear on our values, and made sure we're aligned, as you said, all of that stress and people pleasing and all of the stuff that weighs us down really would be almost non-existent. But because we stray from the why, and most of us are not self-aware enough to know what our values are, right? And so it causes everything to not be aligned. So I feel like we're on the chiropractor's table right now. Angie is helping us align.
Fred's
Right.
not quite
Can you
aligned
hear
yet.
it? Can you hear it? It's coming, Aaron. It's coming.
Let me tell
But
you.
see, I have to go to the chiropractor every 2 weeks to get realigned. That's a thing, right? It's not a one and done thing.
Yes.
This is ongoing work. Yeah.
Going.
It is ongoing, and I've spent the last year really focusing a lot on this. And you're right, Angie. I would say if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh, I can't do all this," just one little thing at a time. Just start. It goes back to the intention piece again, I think.
Yes.
And Letitia, what you've been talking about last year is exploration, right? Having fun, being playful, being curious, and all that, which is what Angie is reinforcing. So try to do it, because for me, what I realized, I don't even know if it was a people pleasing thing, even though that is in my nature, but I realized in taking a course, and I had to do some really big, self-evaluations. And I even, Letitia was part of it. I was asked in this program to reach out to about 30 people in different circles of my network, from personal to professional, to hear what it looks like when I'm a good leader, so that I could see the similarities and things like that. And I really realized that I will at work take on too much. I will say I will do something and I don't know why, even though I know I don't have the time for it, but I'll do it and I'll get it done. And I'll do it with 110%. But I've started to kind of delegate more, not be, I stay quiet, even though it might get uncomfortable because people I know are expecting me to volunteer for it and I don't. And it's been amazing, the shift, not only in how people are treating me, I think in a better way, not that they were treating me badly before, but just for me, it's better now. And on the other end of it, I just feel more focused and not so stressed at work all the time, because I am picking and choosing how much of my energy is going into the projects, that I'm working on at school.
I love that.
So good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And I'll just kind of channel the spirit of Brene Brown here and be vulnerable, because I really try to live. Vulnerability is powerful, but I will say, Aaron, for me, it was the fear of abandonment.
Yeah,
saying yes, even though I know what many times was not the right response. My fear for abandonment kept me saying yes. Because I want you to like me. I want you to accept me. I don't want you to leave me. And the moment that thing clicked, where you believe I am enough, I am enough and I have a right to say no, life has just never been the same. So I want to encourage all of us here and our listeners. Vulnerability is powerful. And when you get to the reason why, it will literally set you free.
Well, and it's interesting.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Angie. Go ahead.
Well, I just say real quickly, it is when you have that kind of moment where you're like, all right, I kind of get it now. I'm going to make a shift. It is not easy. It's easy to be like, oh, there goes the light switch. And now I'm a whole different person. But we can retrain our brain. We can, because our neural pathways, right? The deeper the belief, the harder it is to kind of fill in that neural pathway and start a new one. But it's totally possible. And I do things with my clients on, we just do little ladder steps, right? Like we'll just kind of start one little thing and then try this and then try this. And it's possible. So the point is, right, when it feels hard, that means you're on the right path and keep going.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that a couple different things, but to Letitia's point, it's, and when there's no proof of that, you know what I mean? Like you have that, it's almost like that fear, this is going to happen when it's never happened. Like, so you're beholden to that. But the other thing I was going to say too, when you're talking about that, the why aspect, it's, it reminds me of a lot of the other phrase that we may get a little cliche these days too, is being in the moment. So not so much always thinking about what is the outcome, but thinking about the process that you're involved in. Enjoy the process. enjoy the moments. Don't always be looking further down the road. We'll expecting something to be magical out there without giving attention to the detail to get you there.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing to keep in. And I think if you do that, some of those other things do fall into place. But it's tricky. It is tricky. You're right. That neural pathway could be awfully deep. But as long as Pete hates everybody, I think it's going to be okay.
Works out well for me.
Oh, Pete.
It just comes through so clearly in these episodes, Pete.
Right.
Angie, so, I told you our listeners love lists. We love lists or books or, anything to help us when we're having these conversations. If we want to continue on our own, educating ourselves, do you have some things that you could recommend for us?
Well, okay. So I'll go with the list first, and then I have a little caveat. All right. So I think I do love personality assessments. Now, I will say they can be helpful and they can be unhelpful. You kind of get what you pay for. So there's a lot of things you can do online for free. You can see what Disney character you're like, all those kinds of things, right? Yeah, it's really fun. However, is it meaningful and helpful? So I think they're good. It is a data point. So I encourage them, but not as like, this is the end all be all. It's a data point. I do love Annie Brene Brown. So I'm with you, Letitia, on that. Love Brene Brown, all of her work for sure. Right now I'm doing Dare to Lead, and I'm kind of doing some reviews on that book on my own podcast. I just think it's so good. So that's an awesome book. There's a book called Insight by Tasha Eurich, which is good. It's all about self-awareness. And I think, again, there's so many podcasts out there, but there's two that I love that aren't necessarily driven towards educators or any kind of one, profession. There's the Life Coach School by Brooke Castillo, and then there's Better Than Happy by Jody Moore. They're both amazing life coaches, but talk about self-awareness and these concepts really deeply. So I think those are great too. I will say this, that a practice that I love to do is what I call a thought download, and it's journaling. It's a brain dump. You've heard so many different ways. I think it's really important though, to get into a practice of just taking what's in your brain and throwing it on paper. Just getting it out of your head onto paper is a great practice in self-awareness, because you can then look at things for what they are, thoughts or feelings, whatever. And you do this without censoring. You do this without judgment, because a lot of times what will happen is, I can't write that. I can't believe I'm thinking that. I should not be thinking that. Nope, there's no place for that. You get it all out, and then you can look at things like, oh, well, maybe that's really not that bad or whatever. Just getting it out of your brain is really good. And my caveat to all of this is that there are so many books and podcasts and things that you can do for self-awareness, but the important thing is what you do with it. So taking notice of how you're feeling when you're hearing so-and-so talk about whatever, or when you're reading the book, another book. What is the one by Shonda Rhimes? Year of Yes, right? Another great one. As you're reading things or listening to things, what's coming up for you? And take notice of that, right? Because what could come up is like, oh, I could never be like Brene Brown. She's here and I'm here. And that's not helpful. So if you notice that, you can be like, oh, why am I thinking that way? And is that true? Or the things that inspire you. So if you really want to get some good self-awareness, be aware of what's coming up for you as you're hearing and reading and listening to all of these things.
I like that.
Ooh, that was
Powerful list. I want everyone to know I was laughing because when Angie, you said about journaling and brain dumping, not being too transparent. So there was a time in my life where I would journal and censor myself because I'd be worried that when I died, people
Someone's gonna find it. I know.
You're not alone.
Who cares? You're dead.
Or just rip it up after you're done. You don't, you know what I mean? Like,
shredded.
yeah.
That is hilarious. But yes, I'm all about the brain dump.
Nice.
Don't care what you think when you read it.
That's right.
That's right. Or Letitia, you're more than welcome to put me in the will of I'll be the person that gets those books, and then I'll take it for you.
We should make
Thank you. I feel so much better.
Love it.
Those were so good. I got excited.
Yes.
So if you're watching the YouTube, I did get away because I got certified in the Dare to Lead stuff.
Yes.
I love it.
This is the secret book that you get, and it was unbelievable. So Angie, I can't wait to see what you're doing with the book, and I'm going to be following that big time. That's exciting.
Okay, don't judge me. You know more than I do.
No judgment here.
So good.
Okay, so this is a part that I love that we started doing, I think last year, Fred, where we get to ask our guests to give us a teacher, a mentor, a coach, share a nice little story with us or shout out someone that, influenced you at some point in your life or inspired you that you just want to, share that story?
Yeah. You know what? And I know you asked this question because I listened to your podcast, and I really had a hard time with this because I think I'm the kind of person where I think every human inspires me. I love everyone's stories. I love what they do. I mean, even if it's people that rub me the wrong way, there's still something there, right? So I just really had a hard time with this. But there is a person that came to mind, and it was my high school choir teacher. I started in choir, I don't know, I think it was either 10th or 11th grade. So I was not a singer, but it was a new school. And so I decided to join, and his name was Wally Miller, and he looked like Santa Claus. He had the white beard and all the things, and he was very jolly. And here's what I loved about him, and here's why he came to mind, is that he had a clear passion for what he did, right, in music for sure. But gosh, he had such a passion for us as students, like the whole person. He cared about everything, about everybody, and made everyone feel like they were somebody, right? And there wasn't these groups of the jocks and the whatever, like there was no such thing in his class. We were all from all different walks of life, and we were like a family, and he cultivated that by really caring about everybody as a whole person. And he did that throughout the school. I mean, that our choir wasn't big, but everybody knew who he was. Wally Miller.
Nice.
I love
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's out there listening and he heard that. And
now
I don't know. I graduated a long time ago. I have no idea.
Now Angie will sing a little ditty for us all and for her teacher. Go ahead, Angie.
This I will. This I will not do. I will not do that. No.
All right. So you said you listen. You're a fan. You're a guest. You're part of the teachers pep rally. So this is where we will go around and kind of share like little thing that you inspired us with, or some kind of little piece that we're going to take with us and try. So Fred, you went last time, so you know what, let's let you go first.
It's that A word. It's that ably again for the alphabet. Thank you. So Angie, thanks for being here. It was a pleasure getting to meet you this past year, and then working with you, and we're kind of communicating in all other channels. So it's awesome to see what you're doing with the coaching. So you said a number of great things, and those lists I'm going to be revisiting. So I get to edit the video, so I get to rewrite everything. So that's really cool. And hopefully we could share those in other ways. The self-aware, I don't know if I should say it, or if I'm going to say it incorrectly. Self-aware equals curiosity. But I do think for me, my takeaway is a reminder this week, if not next week, to take a look at these techniques, because the thing that I'm always trying to awaken in my students is their ability to be curious, to ask questions, to work through problems, whether you want to call it grit. But all of those things that need to take place, I think are kind of hampered by this lack of self-awareness. And if we can kind of peel some of that back off and release some of this, I think this could be a great awakening for at least one student, if not all of them, however we do this. So I love that aspect, and I love that fact that you're doing that with professionals, because going back to that ever since you said that pathway of the neurons, I have this big vision in my head of this really dark canyon. And that's your work, right? So that's really good. So thanks for sharing that, because this has been a great reminder, because last year we talked about DISC assessments. We talked about some of these things, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I didn't. So now I'm going to kind of weave that back into my classroom. So that's great reminder. Thank you.
Cool. How about you, Pete?
It's so good to see you, Angie. I think the world of you. My notes are full tonight. Just lots and lots of little fortune cookies. To be clear on the why, inside out approach, when you take the time, alignment inventory. I love that. And it made me think, deep into adulthood, I started to learn what kind of learner I was. And even though I'm in an extroverted position a lot of the time, I am very much an introvert. I am an extroverted introvert. And I used to beat myself up for the amount of time that I needed to recharge after something. And I used to beat myself up over, well, why don't I have the energy to do this now? And once I learned my wiring, once I learned the best time of the day for my creativity and for this and for that, and once I started being good to myself, like you said, gosh, productivity was better. My outlook on things were better. I felt better about everything generally. So totally agree with that. And boy, this is great stuff. It's so good to see you.
Thanks, Pete.
Nice job.
All right, Letitia.
like you, Pete, my notes are full tonight. I have like just some big bucket words: curiosity, alignment, values, inside, pause, and compassion. But I think the phrase, and I really think you need to lock this down, Angie, is there is such beauty in a pause. There is such beauty in a pause. And last week I shared that I attended a silent retreat for 3 days over the summer. And that pause was a true gift. And so I want all of our listeners to know that you are worthy of the pause, that nothing really matters until you take care of you. So thank you, Angie. I just think that was beautiful. There is such beauty in a pause. Thank you, my friends, my new friends.
Thank you. Yes.
Hashtag that. Hashtag that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I wrote the same thing, Letitia. I mean, I wrote a couple notes, but that was the big thing that I wrote on the top, was such beauty in pause. I just feel like we don't do it enough. Whether you're in education or not, it's okay to take the pause, whether it's in that moment where you're all of a sudden feeling some kind of emotion, maybe it's negative emotion, to give yourself a minute to just kind of, digest it or think about it, or even walk away from a situation. That's totally okay. Totally okay. But the fact that you said there's beauty in it, instead of where most people think there's like an awkwardness or an ugliness to it, it's very nice. And so
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
We could have talked to you for so long. There's just so many things that you shared with us that I think are going to be helpful no matter what profession someone is in. So if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, there's a few places I hang out. My website is angie-robinson.com, and there are some resources on there, like a values assessment, values inventory that you can download for free and do that work as well. Instagram and Facebook at Angie Robinson Coaching. If you're a LinkedIn person, Angie K. Robinson. And then I do have a podcast. It's called The Practically Perfect Leader.
It's excellent.
Oh, thank you. So, I mean, it is, I guess, geared towards leaders, but not really. It's really any human, to be honest with you. And I just dive into the self-awareness work a little bit deeper. So
Nice. I like the Disney reference too.
Yeah.
you know me.
Why we're friends.
I was like, this is a real thing. This is a real thing. Well, Erin, I don't know if you noticed, but we didn't let Angie give us her takeaway.
Oh my goodness, I am out.
What was your takeaway, Angie?
Thank you for realigning me, Letitia.
Yes. Be aware,
Angie,
self-aware.
Any last words of wisdom or something that came up in the conversation that you want to highlight?
Ooh, I wasn't prepared for that.
No problem.
It's okay. It's okay.
This is what they do to me
unpreparedness.
every week, Angie.
I know. This really makes me nervous. I think of my biggest point, and we didn't even talk about boundaries. That could be the next episode, right?
Oh,
But
yes.
I think my biggest point is educators. Again, I love you. You are amazing. You are undervalued, all the things. I won't go on that soapbox, but you are human, and you are just as important as the work that you do and the people that you do it for. And there is no shame in putting yourself on top of the list or at the same level that you put everybody else that you serve. So you deserve that. And I know that's my biggest thing for you.
That was well
Thank
said.
you. Yes.
Thank you. Pete, where can people find us?
Facebook group, teacherpeprally.com. We are on Instagram. Fred puts the video on YouTube, and wherever you're listening to podcasts, like Erin mentioned, please leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going, help spread the word. And that's about it.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Angie, for coming on.
Thank you.
Absolutely loved it. And let's all become a little more self-aware.
Thanks, Angie.
Yes. Thank you.